r/ask me anything videos. I am a pedophile. Ask me anything. Now for the top comments. Have you ever considered going to see a psychologist to see if it's possible to work this out? I mean, provided you can restrain yourself, it really isn't hurting anyone except yourself. I say this not because I fear for anyone else, but would it not be worth your time if you could work this out and have a natural attraction to women in and around your age? As you said, I do want to talk to you, because this is a big weight on my shoulder and something I worry about weekly, if not daily, so clearly it's not something you enjoy. I really think that you could get some benefit out of it. Even if you were still attracted to girls much younger, you might at least be able to work out why you feel this way and work out a method with him/her of getting over these feelings if ever they could harm someone. Don't you think it would be at least worth a try, or is it just not a feasible option to you right now? Now for Op's response. I've considered seeing a psychologist, but basically the fear of vigilante persecution is simply too strong. I've heard stories of cops who simply look the other way when crimes are committed against a pedophile, anything from vandalism of his property, to death threats, to outright murder, simply because the cop personally believed we deserve it. If cops can let their personal beliefs affect their job performance that way, why couldn't psychologists? I am dating on and off 2 girls who are studying or planning to study psychology. Maybe once they get their degrees, or as they are getting their degrees, they can offer counseling. It'll probably be several years before that happens, though. Now for the top comments. That said, it's not my own pedophilia which troubles me, see my comment on rationally versus emotionally, but rather society's perception of pedophiles. As you say, if someone could somehow make me not a pedophile, it might solve a lot of my problems. But I guess I associate this with my self-identity, and feel like losing that would be losing a part of who I am. I guess it's the same as how some homosexuals don't want to be cured of their homosexuality, even though it would probably make their lives easier, if they live in a particularly intolerant slice of society. That said, thank you for your sympathy. In your opinion, what do you think causes your behavior psychologically speaking? Genes? Chemical imbalance? Weird relationship with your parents? Some kind of failure to update standards over time? Or do you just like the way they look? Second question, what would you do if pedophilia or ephebophilia were legalized and completely disconnected from any negative social stigma whatsoever? Would you pursue a relationship with a minor? If so, would you also pursue a relationship with an adult woman for intellectual stimulation? Do you feel you could get properly intellectual stimulation from a 14 to 16-year-old? Thanks. Now for Op's response. In your opinion, what do you think causes your behavior psychologically speaking? Genes? Chemical imbalance? Weird relationship with your parents? Some kind of failure to update standards over time? Or do you just like the way they look? I'm not a psychologist, so I really don't know. I'll state that I tend to behave childishly myself, e.g. still watching cartoons, or enjoy drawing with crayons, etc. I've tried establishing friendships with both people my age, and people much younger than me. The people my age simply don't seem to have any common interests with me. There's no connection formed, and so the friendship with them is usually very shallow. I connect much better with teenagers and children, 11 to 16. What would you do if pedophilia or ephebophilia were legalized and completely disconnected from any negative social stigma whatsoever? Would you pursue a relationship with a minor? Yes. If so, would you also pursue a relationship with an adult woman for intellectual stimulation? Simultaneously? I'm willing to pursue a relationship with adults, if that answers your question. And I'm open to the idea of having a harem of girls. I'm just not sure how realistic this fantasy is. Do you feel you could get properly intellectual stimulation from a 14 to 16-year-old? Yes. As I mentioned, I connect and have much more fun and interesting conversations with 14 to 16-year-olds than I do with adults. In all reality, how do you feel about shows like Dateline to Catch a Predator? While I condone their actions, sometimes I can't help but wonder if they are more innocent than the show portrays. Now for Op's response. I know of the show, I guess you can't avoid knowing of it, because of the meme you quoted, but I don't really watch it. I might have seen 1 or 2 episodes. There's this one guy I felt really bad for, the decoy. Girl asks the guy if he brought condoms, and the guy replies he doesn't actually want to have sex with her. He just wants to hang out, watch some DVDs, that sort of stuff. Maybe he'd have sex with her when they know each other better. Then, Chris Hassan shows up and asks why he came to meet the girl anyway, and the guy replies, "I'm a very lonely guy." Know people your age? I tried different personal sites. But they just like. They think I'm too short, or they think an Asian guy would be a nerd or a geek. He seems like the never heard of fly type of pedophile, rather than monstrous rapist pedophile. There's one big bad story involving the show. I don't know all the details, but from what I understand, basically, they baited a guy named Louis Conrad with an actor. I don't know how heavy the flirting got, but the guy decided not to actually meet up with the boy. The boy tried calling Conrad on the phone to seduce him, but he started ignoring him completely. So they got SWAT to storm his house. When this happened, Conrad shot himself in the head. One of the big controversies is that for this operation, the police were basically working for the show. Employees of NBC would perform the monitoring and espionage, told the police to when to acquire a warrant, when to make a tactical entry, and so on. Not only is this illegal, but to me it's quite scary that a television show could actually hold some power over law enforcement agents. Apparently, Chris Hassan and other NBC employees lied about their involvement with the operation, and recanted when video evidence was provided showing their involvement. So yeah, it seems like the show is run by some pretty immoral people. Keep in mind that NBC is a business, and so their primary concern is making money. To Catch a Predator is a television show, so their primary concern is maintaining ratings. The easiest way to do this is to pander to sensationalism, and clearly the management involved in the show are not above lying to gain these ratings. What is the best way to keep people like you away from my children, in addition to common sense vigilance, of course? How can I tell a person is a pedophile? Are there any tells? You want to keep lecherous old men from ogling your fine-ass teenage daughter? If you want to keep her from being abducted from some sick perverted freak, you're wasting your time. Most children are molested by family members or family friends, like Uncle Bob that really isn't an uncle, but loves to take Cindy Lou out for ice cream. The majority of women are raped by men they know, not strangers. You're a victim of sensationalist news reporting. Your kid is in more danger from your friends and family than the summer camp youth director. Now for Ops response. So first off, I agree with Concho Ninja. The statistics that I've seen say that if a child is in a non-consenting sexual relationship, it's usually with a family or friend of the family. That said, I'm going to answer a different question than the one you asked, because I'm taking the arrogant presumption that this is the information you're really looking for. I'm going to rephrase your question to how can I protect my children from online sexual predators? And my answer to that is to be close to them, at an emotional level. Be their friend, their mentor, and, well, their parent. Be someone such that when they have trouble, you're the first person they turn to. Kids are not stupid. If I were the evil kind of pedophile, I might be able to trick an average 5 or 6-year-old, but seriously, many such children can't even leave the house nor take public transportation. They might not even be able to recite their own home address. So how the hell am I supposed to kidnap them? Probably the minimum age of a child which can meet up with me without parental supervision is 11 to 13, and as I mentioned earlier, if they're on the internet at that age, they're probably savvy enough to know what a pedophile, a rapist, etc. are, and not to blindly trust random guys they meet online. But let's say I befriend the 13-year-old, and she thinks I'm cool, and wants to meet me. If she likes you as her parent, she'll probably tell you about me, and ask you permission to meet me. And if you're as understanding and close to her as she believes, hopefully you'll agree to let her meet me. Maybe you'll ask to read the chat logs or emails first, to see what kind of things I'm telling her. Maybe you'll have a little chat with her first, to make sure she's aware of all the dangers. Maybe you'll force her to bring a cell phone with her and call you at regular intervals to check in. Maybe you'll give her advice, like make sure we're always in a public place where lots of other people are around, so that she can scream if anything goes really wrong, etc. If she doesn't like you, she'll probably have had a record of staying over at friends' houses a lot, being extra rebellious, and never telling you anything about her life, such as where she is at night, who she's spending time with, and so on. In that case, don't expect her to tell you about me. For the record, I tend to avoid the latter type of the girl, because I really don't want a berserker parent going after me. I did befriend a 13-year-old girl once, And we talked about meeting up, and she said her parents would never allow it, but she said she'd lie to them and say she's meeting up with another friend instead. I told her that it's probably a bad idea, cause it's really dangerous for me if her parents find out about her lie. And like I said, internet-savvy 13-year-olds know about pedophilia and rape and all that, so she understood why it was dangerous. I didn't need to get into details with her. How do you sleep at night after fantasizing about a 1-year-old? Seriously. Now for Ops response, you ever get into a really heated argument with someone, and walk away, and fantasize like splitting their head open with an axe, or that they get into a car accident, or do some kung fu trick to rip their heart out of their chest, or some other horrible physically painful thing to happen to them? Probably you didn't lose much sleep over it, because as a normal, sane adult human, you are able to differentiate between fantasy and reality, and you know that you were just blowing off steam, and you would never really do it in real life. I'm pretty sure I'm never going to have sex with a 1-year-old in real life. The only difference is that fantasizing about killing people when you're angry at them is common, and fantasizing about sex with a 1-year-old is uncommon. Both are simply thoughts, and do the same amount of harm in the world, namely, none. The only difference is the rarity of these thoughts. Please clarify something for me. I looked up a phebophile and it says basically being attracted to post-pubescent youths, someone in their mid to late teens. So is your main age of attraction 15 to 18-year-old girls? Cause if it is, you are just a normal man. I want to bang out more or less all sexually developed women, which is about that age. I don't, for reasons other than physical attraction, but still I am attracted to them. So how are you different from the rest of us? I'm mostly an ephebophile. I've had fantasies involving girls as young as 1-year-old, though. I've previously described my attraction as a bell curve, with the peaks around 14 to 16, and falling down to 0% at around 1-year-old and 40 years old. Now for Ops response, thanks for your reply and your honesty. I have follow-up comment question. It's regarding the last question about talking someone into sex. To me, the difference between your situation and a normal heterosexual couple is that with a kid under, say 15 to 16, by default someone in their 20s or older is an authority figure and dynamic of the relationship is, in principle, for the child to obey. Thus, giving the older person in this scenario an unfair advantage. Now, I would guess, based on your other replies here, that your reply would include something about that you redefine the relationship with the kid so that you are no longer an authority figure when the subject of sex arises. But, how do you do that really? How can you be sure? Or, if I guessed wrong, why doesn't this authority figure issue bother you? I ask because it's my main problem when I hear about adults having sex with people 13 to 15. Under 13 I really don't think is cool under any circumstances, so there's no point in going there. In general, do you get involved sexually with near strangers or do you get to know them well first? To me, the difference between your situation and a normal heterosexual couple is that with a kid under, say 15 to 16, by default someone in their 20s or older is an authority figure and dynamic of the relationship is, in principle, for the child to obey. Thus, giving the older person in this scenario an unfair advantage. Now, I would guess, based on your other replies here, that your reply would include something about that you redefine the relationship with the kid so that you are no longer an authority figure when the subject of sex arises. Yes, that's probably what I would have replied with. But, how do you do that really? How can you be sure? Or, if I guessed wrong, why doesn't this authority figure issue bother you? I can't be 100% sure, but I don't think this authority figure issue is completely absent from adult relationships either. Check out this blog post. It's about how society has conditioned women to be submissive and men to be dominant, and how this leads to women being raped via just giving in and having sex even though she doesn't really want to. The blogger writes, "We learn that, when we step out of line, somebody around us might very well turn crazy. Might hurt us. And we won't be defended by onlookers, who think we've provoked the crazy somehow. So, having your ass grabbed at the bus stop, having to go out to dinner with a guy you fucking can't stand, maybe even having to fuck him once or twice, it's a small sacrifice to avoid being ostracized, insulted, verbally abused, and possibly physically assaulted." Anyway, on to your next question, I ask because it's my main problem when I hear about adults having sex with people 13 to 15. Under 13 I really don't think is cool under any circumstances, so there's no point in going there. I won't go there except to ask whether you're giving 13 as a limit just because you feel like you have to give some number, and 13 seems as good as any other, or whether you feel there is something special about that particular number. In general, do you get involved sexually with near strangers or do you get to know them well first? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, so I'll start by saying that young girls are not stupid. A girl who is 13-year-old today was born in 1996. There's a good chance she's seen 2 girls 1 cup, Badaber, 4chan, and so on. She knows what a pedophile is, she knows what rape is, and she might tease, but will rarely give out her phone number, home address, and rarely agree to meet up with a 20-something-year-old guy she met online. I think I have an easier time getting dates and sleeping with girls over 18 than under, but it's hard to generalize, because every girl is different. That said, when I do hang out with 14 to 16-year-olds, they will almost invariably bring up sex first. I don't mean that they will ask to have sex with me, but when we hang out at a cafe, they may pick up a fashion magazine and point out the girls in lingerie to me, or talk about this porn video they saw last night. I don't dare bring up the topic of sex first. I think it's too dangerous for me. But if they bring it up, I'm happy to discuss the topic with them. Well, that's all for the video today. I hope you enjoyed it and as always have an amazing day.